Picture this. You're bone-tired, dust-caked, and haven't seen a proper meal in 6 days. The sun's setting over some nameless Texas town, and you stumble into the only place with light and warmth, a frontier saloon. But here's what Hollywood never shows you. These weren't just whiskey bars. They were the original 24-hour diners of the American West, serving meals so unusual, so ingenious, and so downright bizarre that modern food historians are just now piecing together what cowboys actually ate. Today, we're uncovering 10 forgotten frontier meals that fed the wildest, hungriest, and most desperate men in American history. Some will make you hungry. Others might make you question everything you thought you knew about survival cooking. Let's ride into culinary history that time forgot. Spotted Pup Raisin Rice Pudding with beef fat. Don't let the name fool you. Spotted Pup wasn't a stray dog that wandered into camp. This was the cowboy's secret weapon against scurvy, depression, and the soul-crushing monotony of trail food. It was made with white rice, a luxury on the frontier, cooked slowly in beef broth until creamy, then studded with precious raisins that looked like dark spots against the pale grain. The magic ingredient? Rendered beef fat, stirred in while hot, creating a rich, almost custard-like texture that could stick to your ribs through a 3-day blizzard. Now here's the kicker. In 1875, this meal cost about 75 cents. That was nearly a full day's wages for a working cowboy. We're talking roughly $20 in today's money, making it the equivalent of a premium restaurant dessert. Trail bosses were smart about this dish too. They used Spotted Pup as a reward system. Good behavior on a cattle drive meant you got an extra helping. Cause trouble? You got beans and hardtack while watching others enjoy this creamy luxury. And here's a detail that time forgot. Some Wagon cooks added a splash of whiskey to mask the gamey taste of old beef fat. Cowboys called this version Preacher's Downfall. Sweet enough for Sunday dinner, strong enough for Saturday night. Wagon wheel fried bread, stuffed with wild onions and bacon. Imagine a Hot Pocket designed by someone who'd never seen a kitchen and had to feed 30 hungry cowboys with nothing but cast iron and a prayer. That was the Wagon wheel, and it was genius. Picture this: biscuit dough rolled thin, filled with chopped wild onions, crumbled bacon, and sometimes wild garlic or sage. The edges were crimped tight like a turnover, then fried in bacon grease until golden brown and crispy. The result? A portable, handheld meal that wouldn't fall apart in a saddlebag. This wasn't just food, it was frontier fast food. A good cook could make dozens at once, wrap them in cloth, and distribute them to riders heading out on long scouts. They stayed warm for hours and could be eaten one-handed while controlling a horse. And each region put their own spin on it. Down in Texas, they'd add jalapenos and cumin seeds for that signature kick. Up in Montana, cooks stuffed them with wild mushrooms and elk jerky. And in Arizona, they got creative with prickly pear cactus pads for extra nutrition. Here's what time forgot the secret was in the crimping pattern, a specific zigzag fold that prevented the filling from leaking out during cooking. This technique was passed down orally and died with the last generation of Wagon cooks around 1920. Thunder and lightning molasses cake with coffee gravy. When cowboys got homesick for their mother's cooking but were 500 miles from the nearest proper kitchen, they invented thunder and lightning, a dessert so rich it could substitute for a full meal, and so caffeinated it could keep you alert through a midnight cattle watch. The base was a dense molasses cake, more like a sweet cornbread, baked in Dutch ovens buried in coals. The molasses provided not just sweetness, but essential iron, crucial for men who lived on a diet dangerously low in vegetables. But here's where it gets wild: the coffee gravy. Wagon cooks would take the day's leftover coffee, thick as tar and twice as bitter, mix it with butter, brown sugar, and a touch of flour to create a warm, pourable sauce that was part dessert topping, part energy drink. This wasn't just eaten, it was performed. Cowboys would punch holes in their cake with a fork, pour the coffee gravy into the holes, then eat it while the liquid was still steaming. The combination of sugar rush and caffeine hit was legendary. Think of it as the 1,872nd version of tiramisu coffee-soaked cake that delivered both comfort and stimulation. Some cowboys claimed a single serving could keep them sharp for an entire night shift, guarding cattle from wolves and rustlers. Belly cheater inflated pig stomach, stuffed with wild game. This sounds like something out of a medieval feast. But belly cheater was actually frontier fine dining, the kind of meal served when cattle drives reached major trail towns like Abilene or Dodge City. When a pig was slaughtered, the stomach was carefully cleaned, then inflated like a balloon and stuffed with a mixture of chopped venison, rabbit, wild turkey, onions, and whatever herbs could be foraged. The opening was sewn shut with leather strips. Then the entire thing was buried in coals and slow roasted for 6 to 8 hours. When done correctly, the pig stomach became a natural cooking vessel, keeping all the juices and flavors sealed inside. When cut open at the table, it released a cloud of aromatic steam that could make grown cowboys weep with anticipation. This was expensive eating, though. The meat alone represented several days of successful hunting, plus the time and skill required for proper preparation. Only the most successful trail bosses or wealthy cattlemen could afford to serve it to their crews. Belly cheater was served at the end of successful cattle drives, a celebration meal that marked the transition from months of hardship to payday and civilization. It was the cowboy equivalent of a graduation dinner. The technique died out because it required specific skills in both hunting and cooking that became obsolete as the frontier closed and canned goods became available. Jerky gravy rehydrated meat in flour-thickened broth. When fresh meat was a memory and canned goods were a luxury, Cowboys turned to jerky gravy, a dish that could transform boot leather tough dried meat into something approaching edible. Picture this. Take strips of jerky often so hard you needed an axe to break them. Pound them into rough chunks, then boil them in water for hours until they softened. The resulting broth was thickened with flour and seasoned with salt, pepper, and wild herbs. The key was patience. Cowboys would start the jerky soaking at dawn, tend it throughout the day while working, and by evening, they'd have a protein-rich gravy that could be poured over biscuits, cornbread, or just eaten with a spoon. This wasn't just survival food, it was smart nutrition. The long boiling process extracted every bit of protein and fat from the dried meat, creating a calorie-dense meal that could sustain heavy physical labor. Modern food historians who've recreated this dish describe it as intensely smoky and salty, with a texture somewhere between thick soup and thin stew. Not gourmet, but deeply satisfying after a day of hard riding. Some ranching families in Texas and Montana still make versions of jerky gravy during hunting season, keeping alive a tradition that once fed the men who built the American West. Duff steamed pudding, cooked in cloth bags. Imagine trying to make dessert with no oven, no refrigeration, and ingredients that had to survive a 1,200-mile journey in a covered wagon. Cowboys solved this problem with Duff, a steamed pudding that could be made with basic ingredients and equipment they already carried. A thick batter made from flour, suet that's beef fat molasses, and dried fruit was wrapped in clean cloth, often repurposed flour sacks, tied tight, and boiled in a pot of water for 2 to 3 hours. The cloth acted as both cooking vessel and serving container. Cowboys got creative with variations too. Christmas Duff was made with precious spices and raisins, saved for special occasions. Plain Duff was just flour, fat, and molasses, the everyday version. And Spotted Dick Duff? That had currants or raisins scattered throughout. When the cooking time was up, the cloth bag was carefully lifted from the boiling water and unwrapped like a present. The pudding inside was firm, moist, and incredibly rich. A single serving could satisfy a man's sweet tooth for weeks. Duff was often the centerpiece of birthday celebrations or holiday gatherings on the trail. The communal unwrapping and sharing created a sense of ceremony and togetherness that helped maintain morale during long, difficult journeys. This cooking method is actually the ancestor of British Christmas pudding and many modern steamed desserts, showing how frontier necessity influenced culinary traditions that persist today. Vinegar pie, mock apple pie, made without apples. During the depths of winter or in remote locations where fresh fruit was impossible to find, cowboys craved something sweet and familiar. Enter vinegar pie, a dessert that tasted remarkably like apple pie, despite containing not a single piece of fruit. The base was a simple mixture of water, vinegar, sugar, eggs, and flour, flavored with cinnamon and nutmeg. When baked, the vinegar created a tartness that mimicked apples, while the spices provided familiar pie flavors. Here's the chemistry behind it. The acid in the vinegar reacted with the other ingredients to create a custard-like filling that was both tangy and sweet. Some cooks added crumbled crackers to simulate the texture of apple pieces, and it actually worked. While real apple pie required expensive imported apples or carefully preserved dried fruit, vinegar pie could be made with shelf-stable ingredients that cost pennies. A whole pie might cost 25 cents to make affordable even for working cowboys. According to period accounts, vinegar pie was so convincing that many people couldn't tell the difference when served alongside real apple pie. Some cowboys preferred it because it was more consistently tangy than apples, which could vary wildly in quality. This wasn't just about satisfying a sweet tooth, it was about maintaining psychological health. The familiar taste of apple pie provided emotional comfort that helped combat the mental challenges of frontier life. Prospectors Pancakes, sourdough flapjacks with gold dust seasoning. In the mining camps of California, Colorado, and Alaska, regular cowboys mixed with prospectors, creating a unique food culture. The most legendary dish? Pancakes literally sprinkled with gold dust, not as a luxury, but as a practical source of minerals. The base was traditional sourdough starter pancakes, but made with water instead of milk, which was unavailable, and cooked in bacon grease until crispy on the outside and fluffy inside. Here's the part that sounds like legend, but is absolutely true. Prospectors would shake their gold pans over their breakfast, adding literal gold dust to their pancakes. The reasoning? Gold contains trace minerals that miners believed prevented scurvy and other deficiency diseases. Ironically, in successful mining camps, gold dust was more common than actual money. Prospectors used it to pay for meals, drinks, and supplies. A stack of gold-dusted pancakes might cost a pinch of gold worth about $2, roughly $60 in today's money. Modern science tells us that ingesting small amounts of gold is actually harmless. It passes through the body unchanged. So these miners weren't poisoning themselves, just eating very expensive breakfast. Being able to afford gold-dusted pancakes was a sign you were striking it rich. It was frontier conspicuous consumption, a way to show you'd made it without saying a word. Rattlesnake and Eggs, the ultimate frontier protein. When you're hungry enough, everything starts looking like dinner. Cowboys in the Southwest discovered that rattlesnakes weren't just dangerous obstacles, they were actually excellent eating, with meat that tasted like a cross between chicken and fish. Cowboys developed techniques for safely capturing and killing rattlesnakes, using long sticks and quick reflexes. The key was decapitating the snake quickly to prevent the venom glands from contaminating the meat. The snake was skinned, the hide was often kept for leather goods cleaned, and cut into sections. It was then fried with scrambled eggs, creating a high-protein meal that could sustain a cowboy through the most demanding work. Period accounts describe rattlesnake as surprisingly tender and flavorful, mild, slightly sweet, with a texture similar to fish, but meatier. The eggs helped balance the unusual protein and made the meal more familiar and comforting. Rattlesnakes were abundant in many areas where traditional game was scarce. Learning to hunt and prepare them meant the difference between a protein-rich meal and dangerous malnutrition. This practice influenced Southwestern cuisine and can still be found in some parts of Texas and Arizona, where rattlesnake is served at specialty restaurants and county fairs. Fool's Gold bacon-wrapped hardtack soaked in bean juice. Our final forgotten meal might sound like the most desperate creation of starving men, but Fool's Gold was actually considered a delicacy by cowboys who'd been on the trail long enough to appreciate its genius. Start with hardtack, those notorious toothbreakers that were harder than wood and about as flavorful. Soak them overnight in the liquid from cooked beans rich with protein and fat. Then wrap each softened biscuit in bacon and fry until crispy. What emerged was a crispy, salty, protein-packed package that combined carbs, fat, and meat in one portable serving. The bean juice provided flavor and nutrition, while the bacon added texture and richness. Cowboys called it Fool's Gold because it looked valuable golden brown and glistening with bacon fat, but was made from the cheapest, most basic ingredients available. It was frontier irony at its finest. The key was timing. Soak the hardtack just long enough to soften, but not so long that it fell apart. The bacon had to be wrapped tight and secured with wooden toothpicks. Cook it too fast, and the bacon burned before the hardtack heated through. Food historians who've recreated this dish describe it as surprisingly satisfying, salty, rich, and with a complex flavor that belied its simple ingredients. It was proof that necessity truly is the mother of invention. These weren't just meals, they were edible history. Each dish tells a story of adaptation, creativity, and the unbreakable human spirit that conquered the American frontier. Some of these recipes died with the men who created them. Others evolved into foods we still eat today. But all of them represent a time when cooking wasn't just about taste. It was about survival, community, and maintaining hope in the face of incredible hardship. The next time you complain about limited takeout options, remember the cowboys who turned pig stomachs into gourmet dining and made dessert from vinegar and dreams. Which of these frontier meals would you be brave enough to try? And which one makes you grateful for modern grocery stores? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. If this journey through forgotten cowboy cuisine left you hungry for more history, smash that like button, subscribe for more untold stories from America's past, and ring that notification bell so you never miss our deep dives into the wild, weird, and wonderful world of historical cooking. And hey, food history buffs, what other forgotten meals from the past should we explore next? The Civil War? Medieval Europe? Ancient Rome? Let us know in the comments, and we might just make your suggestion our next video. Now saddle up, food adventurers, because our next video will take you even deeper into the surprising culinary secrets that shaped America.